Hi guys, it has been 2 weeks since I was discharged from the hospital because of COVID, and I decided to make this video to tell you about my COVID journey. Okay, so my wife experienced symptoms first, fever and sore throat, and then later on became cough. She went to a private facility to have her swab test since it was a requirement for her office, and then it turned out positive, and we reported it to the barangay, and then the barangay went here, took her to an isolation facility, while every one of us here at home, we were also tested. And then a few days after the results came out, I was also positive. But we thanked, and we're always thanking the Lord, that my parents, who are fully vaccinated, turned out to be negative, and my daughter also was negative. Although they manifested symptoms like slight fever, cough, at least they were negative. So I went to the isolation center where my wife stayed. And then I only had fever and cough. And then as the days went by in the isolation center, my fever became stronger, meaning that my temperature didn't really go down even when I was taking already paracetamol. And then on my 7th day of isolation, my wife noticed around midnight that my skin color, let's just say, it didn't look natural. So she checked my oxygen saturation, and well, she's a nurse, but what she saw, it freaked her out. So she called the doctor and the nurse in the isolation facility that we stayed in, and then they checked me, and then at the same time my wife was also calling all the hospitals, and yes, I mean all the hospitals in Cebu, to ask if I could be taken to the emergency room. And reality, almost all of the hospitals declined because they were full, and that was around midnight. That was a little after midnight on a Tuesday. There were 2 hospitals who did not decline, but they had me on the waiting list. So in the morning of the same day, Tuesday, so on the morning of the same day, Tuesday, an ambulance fetched me from the isolation inn that we stayed in and took me to the hospital. And this is reality. I stayed inside the ambulance, outside the emergency room of the hospital, that means outside the hospital, for 4+ hours. They gave me oxygen while inside the ambulance, and for the first time in a week, I was able to sleep soundly. That was inside the ambulance while waiting for a slot inside the emergency room. So I was inside the ambulance for almost 5 hours before I was finally admitted inside the emergency room. And the emergency room, my oxygen continued, and they gave me IVs. I'm rarely hospitalized, but for the first time in my life, I had 3 tubes, 3 IV tubes, which meant that I was really in a serious condition. And then I stayed in the emergency room for 2.5 days before a private room finally was vacant. So I was transferred to the private room after 2.5 days in the ER with other patients. And I stayed in the private room for 10 days. So that's 12 days. That's 7 days in the isolation facility, and then 12 days in the hospital. I was discharged 2 weeks ago, and I had to stay home. I'm still home right now. I had to stay home to continue my recovery, because even though I don't have COVID anymore, and thank the Lord every day for my second life, even though I don't have COVID anymore, my lungs got affected by COVID. Right now my lungs is not as strong as it was before I got COVID. So as you can see and hear right now, just sitting here and talking to you guys, I'm gasping for breath. It was worse when I arrived home 2 weeks ago, and I've been doing breathing exercises every day to make my lungs stronger. So I'm continuing to recover and recuperate here at home, which also reminds me to thank my office, my head, my immediate head, and our superintendent for allowing me to continue working from home, at least for the time being. Because right now, even with a few movements, it makes me gasp for breath. So I really need to continue working on my lungs, make it stronger, so I can go back to work on site soon. It's dangerous, as I've mentioned last year in my vlog, that I've always been scared of going out during this pandemic. A few days after I was discharged from the hospital, I posted my experience, the same experience I'm sharing with you now on my Facebook wall. And I'm going to read what I posted on my wall, because this is also not just to educate everyone, but also a thank you to everyone who helped. So this is what I posted. "7 days isolated with just cough and fever. Then oxygen saturation went way down. Rushed to the hospital. Had supplemental oxygen for 4+ hours inside the ambulance while waiting for a slot inside the ER. Finally got in, but stayed in the ER for 2 days. Then moved to my own room and stayed there for 10 days. With 3 IV tubes attached. Oxygen. Alternated between the nasal cannula, the one where they insert 2, I don't know what they call them, prongs inside my nose, and face mask. And just to educate everyone, the sort of hierarchy is cannula, and if it's not enough, they give you the face mask, which I felt was more comfortable, but the doctors and the nurses didn't want me to continue with that, because from one of the nurses' terms, it was depressing to him looking at the patient with the face mask. And I learned why later on, because the hierarchy, for lack of a better term, it's the nasal cannula, then the face mask if it's not enough, and if the face mask is not enough, then they intubate the patient, which is really depressing to think about. So I had oxygen, nasal cannula. Then for 1 day we tried the face mask, and then they removed it after 1 day. I continued with the nasal cannula until I got discharged. So yeah, mentally, psychologically, I really fought not to be intubated. So to continue, stayed there for 10 days with 3 IV tubes attached. Oxygen, alternated between nasal cannula and face mask, and then whole body full of needle punctures, and experienced all COVID symptoms I've heard and read about, and it was really worse. Went through literal hell battling COVID. And people who know me know that the whole family is very OC with all the health protocols, yet we still got hit hard. Best thing that came out from all of these, my senior citizen parents, both fully vaccinated, tested negative. My daughter tested negative. My wife, that was the first positive, but she got better quick. So she was able to take care of me in the hospital. I stayed in the hospital alone for almost 5 days before my wife was able to go to the hospital and help me and assist me in everything. So it was timely that she was done with her isolation and she was better. So instead of going home, she went to assist me in the hospital. For those asking, are we vaccinated? I advocated for the vaccine and happy that my parents got them. As for us, we registered May 16 and until now, no text for our turn. COVID got to us first. I am now recovering, recuperating at home. COVID hit my lungs hard and it will take a long time and a lot of work, but hashtag laban lang, or as we call it now, it's laban langs. One of my doctors, my pulmo, even said that it took her husband 10 months before his cough got well. So right now, just to give you an update, no, I don't have COVID anymore. I have antibodies. I have shortness of breath every now and then, especially if I talk a lot, like right now, and especially if I move a lot. And just when I think that my cough is gone, my cough appears and reappears and reminds me that it's still around. Lastly, words will never be enough to thank everyone who helped us through this ordeal. The Alquizolas, Uwanos, Lumapats, and Dinos all over the world, that's our families, and then our friends, my mentors, theater mentors, office mates, my Busconian and Salesian family, and my best friend, the SJ community in Manila. Those who sent financial support, those who sent supplies, those who checked on us every day, and those who included us in their prayers. I may not be able to repay you now, but I promise that I will. I will repay you guys, or I will pay it forward. Thank you all, and most of all, thank you, Lord, for this second life. So that's what I posted on my Facebook wall a few days after I was discharged. So as you can see, I badly need a haircut. I badly need to shave. It's been a while. One of the worst things that COVID can do is not just physical, it's also mental. Staying in the hospital alone for a long time, and even during the time when my wife was already there to help me, COVID will really get to you mentally. You will be in a really dark place. If you don't fight it, it will affect you physically. That's why I mentioned that I went through literal hell, suffering from COVID, and I would not, and everything that I experienced and went through, I would not wish on even my worst enemy. Not that I have an enemy, but that's just to tell you guys it's not easy. So again, thank you guys, and see you next video.